A study at Harvard and Virginia universities found the students preferred physical pain over 15 minutes of boredom. To demonstrate this idea, a famous YouTuber called Michael from Vsauce conducted a similar experiment where he put people in an empty room with no stimulus and a device that will electrocute them if being touched. They were told to stay there for 30 minutes. It took 1 minute and 57 seconds for one of the subjects to touch that device in order to alleviate his boredom. And 5 minutes later, he touched it the second time. This shows how much our brain craves challenge. It needs to do stuff. To answer the question in the title, I feel terrible. I wasn't being unproductive to make a video about it or to do a social experiment. This has always been how I spend my vacations. Whenever there's a long vacation, I convince myself that if I don't take a break and relax, I will have no time to do such things when school starts. And as far as I remember, I've always felt like this at some point during the vacation. At the beginning of the summer, I started this YouTube channel because I told myself this is going to be a long summer and I don't have that much to do. Might as well start something new and explore. But as time went by, towards the second half of the summer, I realized I'm getting closer and closer to when school starts. So I give myself an excuse to take a break. And by that, I meant do nothing. So I switched on the vacation mode. But like the example at the beginning of the video, human brain is not designed to handle boredom. And I don't want to electrocute myself, so I needed to find something to occupy my brain. But how do I rest and work at the same time? Let me explain. If we reduce our brain to something simple, I would say it has three main components: input, output, and processing. As a student, normally there is a balance between the three. I go to lectures, attend meetings, watch movies. I also do homework, presentations, participate in student organizations. I also study, learn new skills, and socialize. But for this entire 1 month, I dialed input to max, output to minimum, and processing to none. All I have been doing is consuming information, not learning, not improving, not producing, just consuming. I watched YouTube day and night, and when I got tired of that, I started playing video games non-stop. And when my neck hurts from playing games, I would lay down and watch a movie. If it's not for food delivery and dumping trash, I probably wouldn't even step outside. And that is why I felt terrible. I have always thought myself as being a healthy person. Of course, I wished I've gone to the gym more often and eat more healthy, but I've always been happy with my physical and mental state. Yet during this month, I felt way worse than usual. I felt the guilt of not being productive. I felt body aches and always being so tired and sleepy, even when I've not done anything physically or mentally intensive. And this is when I realized something. We need time to be bored, however hard that may be. Even when we'd rather be electrocuted, we still need to exercise to pause the input, pause the output, and that's when processing can be at its true potential. I feel so fortunate to live in such a technologically advanced age of human civilizations. We can have most of the knowledge in the world at our fingertips, yet that also means we receive plenty of information every day, whether we want it or not, whether it is helpful for us or not. There was a time when we had breakfast without checking the news, when we drove to work without listening to the latest podcast, when we went to bed without scrolling through social media. Those were the times we used to use for processing, but now are used for inputs. For me, one of the most creative times of the day is when I lay down on my bed, put away my phone, turn off the lights, and then my brain starts to spin. I start to have ideas, but I just want to get a good night's sleep, so it's not that helpful. But if I let those ideas slide, they may never come back. Although we live in an age with ever more information available to us, we have less time to process those information. I'm not saying input is not important. In fact, input is extremely important when you want to learn something new. But we oftentimes emphasize on input too much that we ignore the other two. So how do we learn to be bored? The short answer is, I don't know. But I feel it might be like learning a new musical instrument. Practice is the key. You might have learned all the techniques. You might have known all the musical theories and even the life stories behind composers. But if you don't practice, you'll never be able to play the piece. I would try starting small. Maybe having breakfast without checking the news, commute to work without listening to podcasts, and go to bed without my phone near me. I would probably still bring my phone when I go to the restroom. I don't want to go back to the days when I had to read shampoo ingredients to pass time. Anyway, we should start turning content consuming into digesting. I'm not saying watching YouTube or playing video game is bad. In fact, YouTube is a great platform to learn, and video games can have the most beautiful narratives to challenge our imaginations. What I'm saying is, if you want to learn something, input is not enough. True knowledge and meaningful experience can only be acquired if you combine input, processing, and output all together. Alright, as a pseudo brain expert, here are my revelations. 1. The brain needs to be stimulated. 2. The brain has 3 components: input, output, and processing. 3. Living in the age of information, our input component is being overly stimulated. And 4. We need to learn to be bored to practice the processing component. I know this can be a tough time for a lot of us. If you're feeling something similar to how I felt after spending such a long time being unproductive, I hope this video can offer you a new perspective of the power of being bored. However, if you're staying productive and keeping your brain happy, kudos to you. Let's practice together and master the power of being bored. That's been it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.